Last week, David Lynch, the surrealist filmmaker behind Twin Peaks, Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire, the list goes on, died at the age of 78. He was an incomparable director with a famed catalog, so Lewis and I are going to dive into his works and his legacy.
Yeah, I mean, it's not enough to say that his movies don't remind me of anybody else's movies. I mean, a few auteurs, Quentin Tarantino movies don't remind me of any other filmmakers, even though plenty of what he does is an homage to earlier material. But I will start by saying about David Lynch that his actors, who are routinely in tons of other stuff, I'm talking about Laura Dern or Patricia Arquette or Kyle MacLachlan, whomever, everything they have ever done in a David Lynch movie can't be compared to anything else they've ever done. I think that is a huge testament to the talent and vision of David Lynch that, like, basically, if you go on an actor's Wikipedia and you go to the filmography section, there should be the non-David Lynch section and then the David Lynch section, because it's basically not just its own genre, it's like its own form of, I can't even call it expression. His movies go to places and bring levels of discomfort and mystery. I think he's really just redefined what the word mystery can mean in a movie. Mulholland Drive is a mysterious movie and also a mystery, but not in any traditional Agatha Christie-like way. You are really hunting through a bunch of images, transitions that aren't intuitive, characters that sometimes make sense, sometimes are poignant, scenes that sometimes feel very real and then turn out not to be real. There's just so much to suss out when you get into a David Lynch movie. And so even if you aren't like a huge personal fan of his, like I personally can't dial into a lot of David Lynch movies, I have to say that he is among the most staggering filmmakers of the past 50 years.
I think one of the things that just pinpoints David Lynch's singular vision is the series Twin Peaks. Because the first season, those first 8 episodes, you're introduced to this dreamlike world, starring Kyle MacLachlan, and he's trying to uncover Laura Palmer's murder. And it ends on this cliffhanger. He's shot. He's lying in a hotel room. There's a lot of mysteries happening. And then you open up season 2, and you find out throughout the season who killed Laura Palmer, but then David Lynch leaves directing the series. And you have a bunch of episodes that are, frankly, just embarrassing to watch. Like, they're bad. And he comes back for the finale of the series, and the series immediately feels like David Lynch again. And he returns to it in Fire Walk with Me, the movie, and then, of course, he had The Return on Showtime. And I think that just really shows that no one gets into David Lynch's head like David Lynch does. Like, it was a facsimile of what he was attempting to do. And you see that with a lot of people when they try to replicate auteurs. You brought up Quentin Tarantino, right? I think that we've had a shit ton of Tarantino-esque movies, Smoking Aces,
Right.
for instance. We've had a shit ton of people try to replicate John Woo movies. Charlie's Angels is the only one that did it well.
Of course. And we're talking original recipe. Yes.
Yes. Sorry, Elizabeth Banks.
Yeah, right. She is good on Press Your Luck. I'll say that about her. Okay.
But man, a lot of people have tried to do David Lynch, but, couldn't get David Lynch if he was fucking David Lynch, okay? To quote Nikki.
I think something that's also just awesome about him and the following he has is that his fans really consider his work extremely personal. And I have to say, if you watch his movies, so much bizarre stuff is going on. Like, if you watch Eraserhead and for a moment think, this is my life, I mean, I truly don't understand you at all. He does crazy things in movies. But I think, and I watched Roger Ebert talk about this one time, and it took him a long time to come around to the films of David Lynch, even though he always acknowledged that he was a brilliant director. He said that people kind of like feeling creeped out. Like, there's something that's different than a horror movie and different than a thriller that he did where it just put you in this constantly alert, thoughtful, enigmatic place. And I think people also just like to be there. And I think again, even though I'm not a huge fan of David Lynch myself, something in this space that I really admire, and I think is maybe even the best thing about him, is that there are never any obligatory scenes in David Lynch movies. Because he's not guided by things like narrative choices, because he's not really guided by, you know, logical solutions to problems that are posed early in a movie, you never watch a scene where it's like, oh, that's just setting up something we're going to get to later. Or that's going to set up a thrilling scene we get to later. The minute Mulholland Drive turns on, you are in the heat of that movie. Every single image of that movie is meant to be provocative and engrossing. And maybe some scenes are a little bit more coherent, for lack of a better word, than others, but you're never not entranced with what he is doing. And I think it's fair to say that nobody has wasted your time less as a director than David Lynch.
And I mean, to speak about the person, just to speak about his films feeling personal, I think what happens too is he just sort of writes from a fear, or sort of some question that's nagging him. And it is very lyrical, his writing. It is very dreamlike, and it's not easy to interpret. But I think that, Eraserhead, for instance, is about the fear of parenthood, And I think that when you know these kernels of things, you can sort of watch it, and it feels like the characters in the films are always either coming to some conclusion by the end, or they're waking up, or, they're leaving this earthly plane, but still sort of existing. I think that one of the beautiful things about David Lynch that happened after he died was not just people celebrating his films, but they were celebrating him as a person and his sort of interest in philosophy and his interest in filmmaking and living your life. It was almost like he was a self-help guru too.
Certainly.
This idea where he discussed how life doesn't have to be miserable. I think a lot of people were sharing that. He brought up Van Gogh, for instance, and how people used to associate living a hard life with being a great artist, And I think that he really used to remind people that the hard life prevents you from being an artist, to be honest. The people who have gone through hard lives as artists, people who've suffered traumas, they don't get to create as much as you wish they had. They probably would have created much more if they had better lives. And I think that when he writes about death and despair and all this darkness in his work, he doesn't have that in his real life.
Right. Yeah, he talked about specifically how people associate, you just brought up Van Gogh, associate his pain with his productivity, and it was the opposite, that his painting was in fact a respite from the despair in his life.
Keep It is brought to you by Manukora Honey. Are you looking for something simple and delicious to add to your wellness routine? Well, I don't know, whip it into your protein shake, or just eat it raw, like Winnie the Pooh.
I love Manuka honey. It always goes into my Greek yogurt, always goes into my protein shake, and honey is one of my favorite roles in the American theater, from Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, acclaimed Oscar winner Sandy Dennis, Carrie Coon, Melinda Dillon. Heard of them? Back to Manukora honey. It's rich, creamy, and contains powerful nutrients to support immunity and gut health. It's ethically produced by master beekeepers in New Zealand, home to the Manuka tea tree. The Manuka tea tree's nectar is full with bioactives, packing its honey with 3 times more antioxidants and prebiotics than average, and it's a game changer. All you need is 1 heaping teaspoon each morning to get the most out of the amazing bioactives in Manuka.
Listen, as soon as Lewis started taking this, he's been buzzing.
You should work in ad copy. Don Draper, is that fucking you?
If you don't like what people are saying,
change the conversation. Yes, right.
Now it's easier than ever to try Manukora honey. Head to manukora.com/keepit to get $25 off the starter kit, which comes with an MGO 850 plus Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, a wooden spoon, and a guidebook. I am always envious of people who whip out their own honey sticks on the plane.
That's manukora.com/keepit for $25 off your starter kit. Keep It is brought to you by Armra Colostrum. I'm always on the lookout for ways to strengthen immunity and gut health, improve my fitness and metabolism, and enhance my skin and hair radiance, which, as you can see right now, is poppin'. Well, luckily I found a product that does all that and more. You know how I like starting out my day? With a boost. I'll take anything. Caffeine, a compliment, whatever. But Armor Colostrum is the actual boost that will get me going through my day.
With 400 plus functional nutrients, Armor Colostrum optimizes your whole body's microbiome and strengthens your immune barriers along the mouth, sinuses, lungs, gut, urinary, and reproductive tracts to protect you against unwelcome particles. Are you tired of feeling bloated? While probiotics only address one part of the four-part gut wall, rendering most products kind of dead before they even reach your gut, Armor Colostrum naturally fortifies your entire gut wall system, supporting your microbiome and strengthening the gut wall architecture, which combats irritants that can trigger symptoms like bloating and constipation. What I'm saying is, Miss Frizzle ain't getting in there.
No way. Armor Colostrum also supports your metabolism on both fronts by guarding against toxins that can slow down metabolism and modulate hormones like leptin that ignite your body's fat-burning capacity for your peak metabolic performance. And if your goals are more beauty than brawn this year, Colostrum bioactives have also been shown to reactivate hair follicle stem cells, optimize the hair microbiome, feed regenerative nutrients to the scalp, and work to combat hair loss by guarding against chemical-induced damage to the follicle. You'll also reap strong benefits from antioxidants, whole food prebiotics, growth factors, vitamins, and regenerative peptides that have been shown in research to help reduce fine lines, enhance skin radiance, and activate collagen production, while also strengthening the skin barrier. We've worked out a special offer for our audience. Receive 15% off your first order. Go to tryamra.com/keepit or enter Keep It to get 15% off your first order. That's TRYARMRA.com/keepit. Obviously, also, he was a transcendental meditation guru. I mean, you find countless people who've been helped, guided by that. Did you see specifically the R&B legend who posted about this?
Oh, no. Who?
It would be Shaka Khan. And Shaka Khan wrote a big thank you to David Lynch, and it was a lovely little tribute. And then afterwards, there were 2 hashtags, and the hashtags on that post were hashtag David Lynch, hashtag Shaka Khan. Slay. Why don't I just hashtag things with that? Why don't I just add that to my little tweets every time?
So he helped her unlock her chakra cons.
Yes, if you could. If you can.
Yes,
that's
yes.
right.
That
Tell
is
me something good. A mantra. Yeah.
The way that older celebrities sort of tag things is so funny to me.
Never not funny. It's like they got like a primer in 2009 about how to do it and never advanced. Yeah. I want to say also, my favorite David Lynch movie, the one I stand the most, which I think
Wild at Heart?
What'd you just say?
Wild at Heart?
Wild at Heart, I like the romance in, but there's too much like people getting the shit beat out of them. I also don't respond to gross. There's so much gross in David Lynch that I have to just kind of reject that wholesale for me, Lewis. But The Straight Story, which is a movie starring Richard Farnsworth, a great underrated actor who was nominated for Best Actor very shortly before he died, based on a real story about how this guy heard his brother had a stroke he probably wouldn't recover from, played by Harry Dean Stanton. And this guy, who doesn't have a driver's license or a car, drives his lawnmower from, I believe, Wisconsin to Iowa to Wisconsin. Anyway, Sissy Spacek also plays his daughter. And it is this very straightforward story, no pun intended, about this wise guy meeting people. And there's a lightly surrealist touch, lightly poetic touch to the journey he goes on and the visuals that we see. But it's a lightly Lynchian movie, if we're talking about the standards of a David Lynch movie. But it is so warm and smart and edifying. I really think more people should watch this movie. And also, Roger Ebert loved it.
I would say that my favorite, and we talked about this with Patricia Arquette when she was on the show, is Lost Highway.
I also love watching her talk about David Lynch. Like, she had questions about her character. She goes, so is there 2 versions of me? Is the one a dream? And he was like, I don't know, Patricia. You know, it's just like he let the actors figure it out themselves.
And I think that movie too is one of his that is mysterious, but it's not inaccessible in the way that you're like trying to figure out a mystery. You know, I think that you just sort of watch Lost Highway and you just sort of accept what's happening.
Yeah. It's always so weird to me that like Justin Theroux has a very marked history with David Lynch. You know, he had Mulholland Drive, and then he had Inland Empire, playing actors both times. You just forget to associate him with that. It's like he's ended up accidentally shedding that part of his past, whereas I continue to associate, for example, Laura Dern with David Lynch. If you haven't seen Inland Empire, I don't blame you, because it's 3 hours long, and if you watch two and then like conked out at the last hour, wouldn't blame you. But there's a lot that's interesting in that movie. I love Laura Dern in that movie specifically, and all the weird cameos in it, like Mary Steenburgen is in it, for example. But something people forget about is that was right around the time that things like YouTube were kicking up. And David Lynch decided he would promote Laura Dern as a Best Actress potential nominee for the Oscars by sitting on Sunset Boulevard with a cow and a sign with Laura Dern on it. And he just told his actors, Laura Dern recounts this really beautifully. She said, someone will just come up to me and take a video or something and then post it online, and then people will know all about it. And then it did. It became one of the first sort of viral film moments via YouTube or whatever conduit it ended up on. And I think he always was in that progressively visionary space, being like, the future is coming and I know how I'm going to meet it.
Yeah, I mean, he's also utilized YouTube recently as of the pandemic, where he was uploading his web series, Rabbits, online.
Speaking of Inland Empire, which has a big rabbit story, yes.
And I think he was just always a director, a creator who was curious about the world.
Yes.
You know? Curious about people, too. I think that his characters are always interesting, and they're weird, but there's always something like fun and interesting about them. And I don't know, Twin Peaks obviously is a series that I love because it is modeled after his love of sort of like the soap opera form, and I think that it plays with the tropes of soap operas, but it's not one that's going to be immediately familiar to you if you love, say, melodrama and you grew up around soap operas of like the 90s. You know, if you were watching Days of Our Lives, All My Children with your parents and your sort of millennial age, you might not get those references. Your parents would probably get those, because Twin Peaks is mostly based on, I guess, the tropes of soap operas of the 70s, of the 80s, when they were filmed with theater actors, when they were filmed in New York on these, you know, big standing sets, and there was a lot of silence. There were a lot of slow pauses. There were a lot of people walking to telephones, and you know, the opening credits of Twin Peaks is so fucking long, and it's I love watching it when it comes on, because it's so it feels like you're meditating, to be honest. Yes. And yeah, I think that he really plays with those older tropes of television, with the slow pauses, the slow pans, the focusing on a character's face for so long.
Oh yeah, no, he will not pull away from somebody looking terrified for minutes and minutes. Like, trust me, like that's why Laura Dern, the definitive image of her, I think people think of that scene in Enlightened where she's like screaming. Oh no, I think of her in Inland Empire looking crazed as she's suddenly in a room with a group of prostitutes. His visions about sex, very interesting. I need to read like the Freudian essay on whatever he's doing there. I also love about David Lynch's obsession with, and this is exhibited in Twin Peaks, the Pacific Northwest. And he really evokes, like, all of his movies do this thing where there's an eeriness mixed with the mundane. And I feel like the Pacific Northwest has a lot of imagery that adds to that kind of vibe. But I think specifically, something people really love about David Lynch is like the way his movies linger on you after you leave them too. Like, even if let's say you're completely frustrated with the theatrical experience of his, there's something about walking away from the movie where, I'm not saying you're quote unquote thinking about the movie, but you feel different about reality. You feel different about like the people around you or the things around you. There's just something, there's a layer of intrigue about everything that just his casual way with making a movie, I guess it's not casual at all. It's extremely formal and strange, but it's hard to shake. And I do want to say in general that it is a pet peeve of mine when people say, like, they equate, I'm still thinking about this movie weeks later with it's good. I think about plenty of stupid things all the time. You won't believe what stupid things I'm thinking about. And I don't, like, I'm still thinking about Jim Perry as the host of Card Sharks. Was Card Sharks, does that deserve a Peabody Award? Probably not. But there is a quality about him where it's like, it makes you just feel like he knows something you don't when you leave a movie of his. And I feel like that's a very mysterious thing people are attached to.
Now, what do you think about Dune?
I appreciate Virginia Madsen giving it her all and Sting giving it his all. But I could only give so much. And I don't believe I've even seen the whole thing.
Yeah, I think Dune is really a mother's love kind of film. You know,
Yeah, right.
If you are a Lynch stan, you love Dune. And even if you are a Lynch stan, you might not love Dune. You know, I am a much bigger fan of the more recent Dune films. I feel like I actually know what the story's about, for instance.
Yes, that makes sense. I do love The Elephant Man, which was produced by Mel Brooks and why his wife Anne Bancroft is in it. John Hurt in The Elephant Man may be my favorite performance ever in a David Lynch movie, and I'm saying it's much better than even Bradley Cooper on Broadway. I know he would love to be the definitive Elephant Man. Not the case. That is a movie worth seeing too, and that was another one of the David Lynch movies to get an Oscar-nominated performance. I believe the other one is Diane Ladd in Wild at Heart, where she gives that has to be one of the craziest nominations of that entire category. I also love her in Inland Empire as a complete bitch talk show host. And by the way, Diane Ladd's still with us, mother of Laura Dern.
Yeah. Keep It is brought to you by 3 Day Blinds, Jesus' favorite.
And on the third day, he blinded again. You know what the number one most annoying thing about blinds that aren't from 3 Day Blinds are? Pure ugliness. I walk into a house and I see somebody has blinds from, the Clinton administration. They're the wrong color. They're bent in exactly one place, so I'm constantly noticing that they're gross. And then it's all I can think about. New blinds will refresh your entire room.
It's 2025. Are your blinds still from 2005? There's a better way to build blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery, and it's called 3 Day Blinds. They are the leading manufacturer of high-quality custom window treatments in the U.S., and right now, if you use the URL 3dayblinds.com/keepit, they are running a buy one, get one 50% off deal.
3 Day Blinds has local, professionally trained design consultants who have an average of 10 plus years of experience that provide expert guidance on the right blinds for you in the comfort of your home. Just set up an appointment and you'll get a free, no obligation quote the same day. I just walked into the office at Crooked. The 3 Day Blinds are up. Honey, they're gorgeous.
Now, what I loved is that I am not a very handy person, and my familiarity with blinds is usually when I'm around the poker table.
You're like Annie Duke. That's right.
So what I love is that the expert team at 3 Day Blinds handles all the heavy lifting. They design, measure, and install so you can sit back, relax, and leave it to the pros, or watch your favorite poker movie starring Jessica Chastain.
Molly's Game, I want it. I also just love 3 Day Blinds because every version of a 3 Day Blind I've seen is gorgeous. So buy them because they're attractive. How about that? With 3 Day Blinds, you choose from thousands of options that fit any budget or style, and with actual samples, you won't be guessing about what your blinds will look like. 3 Day Blinds has been in business for over 45 years, and they have helped over 2 million people get the window treatments of their dreams, so they are a brand you can trust. Right now, get quality window treatments that fit your budget with 3 Day Blinds. Head to 3dayblinds.com/keepit for their buy one, get one 50% off deal on custom blinds, shades, shutters, and drapery. For a free, no charge, no obligation consultation, just head to 3dayblinds.com/keepit. One last time, that's buy one, get one 50% off when you head to the number 3dayblinds.com/keepit.
Keep It is brought to you by Helix. Let me tell you something about Helix mattresses. I love them. I can never even feel a pee underneath a Helix mattress. That's how comfortable they are.
And you wear a Carol Burnett wig to bed every night.
I do. It's the only way I can fall asleep.
I'm going to say, the world's hardest bob can only work on that noggin of yours. The Helix lineup offers 20 unique mattresses, including award-winning Luxe and ultra-premium Elite collections, Helix Plus, a mattress designed for big and tall sleepers, Helix Kids mattress designed for growing bodies, endorsed by child sleep experts. So how will you know which Helix mattress works best for you and your body? You're not going to believe this. You can take the Helix quiz, the sleep quiz, and find your perfect mattress in under 2 minutes. I took it, and as you know, I am a qualified Helix Ultra ambassador, and I sleep soundly on my Helix Luxe mattress every single night.
Well, if you're not sure, you can take mine or Lewis's word for it. Helix has been awarded the #1 mattress picked by GQ and Wired magazine. It is even recommended by multiple leading chiropractors and doctors of sleep medicine as the go-to solution for improving your sleep. Improved sleep helps my life so much because, first of all, you do not want to be falling asleep on the subway in New York, okay?
Oh, I'll write that down.
Yeah, it's dangerous out there, okay? It's giving the Warriors. So I love having, just more pep in my step. I love being able to concentrate at work. I love being able to write better, read, and concentrate on the words. Sleep is kind of a good-ass thing. So go to helixsleep.com/keepit for 20% off site-wide, plus 2 free dream pillows with mattress purchase. That's helixsleep.com/keepit for 20% off site-wide, plus 2 free dream pillows with mattress purchase. helixsleep.com/keepit. I guess lastly, I want to ask, Lynchian obviously became an adjective to describe a lot of films. And a lot of people have tried to straight up jack his swag, or there are some people who I feel like have been able to evoke that quality, but sort of do their own thing with it. What are some films that you would say feel like Lynchian, but managed to accomplish it? I mean, I feel like Donnie Darko comes to mind for me.
Oh, that's interesting. I would actually pick a movie that predates David Lynch, which is The Trial, which is directed by Orson Welles, stars Anthony Perkins. It's based off the Kafka story. And David Lynch himself said the only artist he ever really related to, or the only artist that could be his brother in history, is Franz Kafka. And I think it's that feeling of both paranoia mixed with just epic imagery that I associate with David Lynch. I think he almost certainly had to have been inspired by that movie. In fact, I thought about Kafka because in the Empire, Jeremy Irons gives a really great performance as a kind of scuzzy film director guy, and he played Kafka once in the movie Kafka. But so I think I would have to say that you would actually have to go to old expressionist movies, like German expressionist movies of like the 1920s, to really get a Lynchian vibe elsewhere, I think.
Sorry, yeah. Speaking of older films, I would say maybe something like Persona.
Sure. Yeah. Which, I mean, Liv Ullmann, one of the great actors of all time. By the way, do you know what I thought of David Lynch? This is weird. We grew up in a time in the 90s when I feel like maybe people like David Lynch influenced even children's programming a little bit. The television show The Adventures of Pete and Pete, things on that show would happen that were so, like, one, gross, and then two, completely weird. Like, there's a segment where, like, Kate Pearson from the B-52s just appears, and she's wearing sunglasses, and it's a completely darkened room. She starts ranting about a guy named Leonard who has nothing to do with the TV show. Things like that remind me of David Lynch.
Well then, Lewis, it will not shock you to find that it is a common sort of like Reddit theory that The Adventures of Pete and Twin Peaks take place in the same universe.
Okay, well, I don't know what else would belong in that universe. They really do remind me of each other. Yes.
Yeah, I think that was a show that maybe primed me for getting into Twin Peaks when I was older. I think that if you're able to find old episodes of Pete and Pete online, please do it. And I think they're mostly like on YouTube right now. But man, imagine being a kid and tuning into Nickelodeon and you see this weird ass show set in this small town. And it was only that. And do you remember Erie, Indiana?
A little bit. Yes. Right.
Yeah. Those shows were just very much weird, absurdist shit. For kids. And yeah, I think that if you're looking for influences from David Lynch, specifically around that time, kids shows always tend to be just sort of a free-for-all for artists where they can sort of replicate the films and the artists that inspire them, and you're able to get away with it a bit more because you're just making like disposable kids TV,
Yeah, right. Also, I mean, like Pete and Pete too was very like not gritty underside of suburbia, but definitely there's something eerie about the suburbs. So there was like, if you did a G-rated version of Blue Velvet is kind of the vibe,
Yeah, and of course the strongest man in the world,
Artie, yes.
Artie, it's totally a David Lynch character.
Oh yeah, and yet funny and strange and like touching, yeah.
Yeah, maybe my last film I'd throw out that's sort of like him, and it feels like this director, but it also feels like this particular movie was a departure for him, where he was probably inspired a bit by maybe Lynch's work, is PTA, Paul Thomas Anderson's Punch Drunk Love.
Oh, yeah, which of course stars the still somehow underrated Emily Watson. I'm
Yeah.
so glad that she is tangled with Paul Thomas Anderson, and I'm so glad she got a juicy part on Chernobyl not too long ago. But if you haven't seen Breaking the Waves with Emily Watson, I've talked about that in our Oscars videos several times. But one of the definitive actress performances ever. She's one of these like Andrea Riseborough talent freaks. Like something is wrong with Emily Watson.
Yeah, and also Punch Drunk Love, if you have not seen it, is a film from the very weird era where I guess Adam Sandler was bored and he decided he wanted to be a real actor.
Right. No, he only did that like 3 times. You know, we got your Uncut Gems. You've got your, I think Reign Over Me was a flop, but that kind of thing. Yeah.
Last words on David Lynch. If you're in New York, make sure to visit the Marquee at IFC in the West Village. It's on West 4th. His name is out there. Every time I pass by, I see people either posing or taking photos of it. So,
and I just want to add, by the way, that David Lynch movies are definitely best experienced in a theater. By all means,
yes.
be around people feeling the eerie thing you're feeling as you watch this movie. Like, it shouldn't be something you turn off while you're eating cereal. It shouldn't be.
Although he would enjoy that.
Right, no, and then something would come out of the cereal and bubble up, and yeah.
Places in New York like Film Forum or the IFC or the Metrograph, and then of course like theaters like the New Beverly in Los Angeles. I'm sure that they are all working on programming later this year to honor David Lynch. So look for his films so that you can watch them in a theater.
And I will look forward to the inevitable tribute at the Oscars. I'm sure we will get a big segment out of that. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, depends on who's involved.
Who are you worried about?
Can you just imagine something like Ryan Reynolds in it?
Oh, I see. I mean, like, I think there's too many like living actors from his movies. You'll get a Laura Dern or a Patty Arquette or something like that. Naomi Watts, for example.
Yeah, we'll find out he actually directed the Oscars in advance one year, and they just never aired.
He did it on a Sony camcorder, knowing that would be the future. Yes.